Hello, everyone out there. I'm looking forward to diving into our sanctuary session very shortly here today. I believe we're live on a couple of different channels. If you are able to hear me and you're with us live, go ahead and pop something in the chat so that I know that you're here. Say hello, let us know where you're dialing in from or watching from. I'm Leanne. I'm going to be your host for our session today. And if you are just arriving, just know that we're about to be in a session I'm calling a sanctuary session. So, a session to replenish yourself, to build a couple of skills, and to just get some time back to get in your own headspace, your own body space here before we move into the holidays, which is coming so much sooner than I thought it would. So, I'm looking forward to being in this with you. The theme of our session today is called Having It All during the holiday season. And if that kind of piques your interest, or if you have some skepticism about that theme, I hope that you'll stick around. I have some as well. So we're going to dig into what that may mean and how embodied practice can actually help with that. Let's see. Just waiting to see if we are live. Looks like we're live on Facebook. Thanks, Bailey, for helping us out to check on our channels. Welcome folks who may be on Facebook watching now or later. YouTube is live. Wonderful. All right. Welcome, welcome. Thank you again for being here. LinkedIn is live as well. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And know that if you are here now and taking this in, I really appreciate your choice to make the time. I also realize many of you may be watching later. So this session, the transmission, what we're going to do can be digested, can be received at any moment. What I highly recommend is that if you can, that you arrive for this session not in multitask mode. I realize that may not be possible. One of my favorite ways to watch a session like this is actually if I'm driving or cooking dinner or doing something that's more with my hands and might be required to actually get down in the body, but also my mind is free, for example, to be present. What I suggest is not to also check emails while you're watching if you possibly can, because what I'd like to do during this time together is actually to offer you some nourishment, body, mind, and heart, or body, mind, and spirit. And to be able to receive and take that in, it can be helpful to be as uncommitted to other things in particular in your headspace as possible. You don't have to stay for the whole time. And if you arrive late or you come back to it, that's totally okay too. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those who may not know me that well yet, I'm Leanne Mallory. I am the creator of the Guts and Grace Women's Professional Coaching Program. I'm also an executive coach and an author of the book by the same name, Guts and Grace, A Woman's Guide to Full-Bodied Leadership. I see myself as a teacher, as a healer, as an artist, as a strategist, as a business coach as well, and as a guide for the secretly spiritual professional woman who is really committed to making big changes in her industry, her organization, or her community, and knows that she needs and wants to do that without burning out. So it's kind of a mouthful. In summary, I really help women step into a deeper understanding of their own instincts, intuition, and the wisdom of their bodies to support them making choices that create more powerful decisions at work, but also help them make waves in their industries or their organizations. Most of the folks that connect with my work are both, I think, deeply committed to showing up in our workplaces and in our communities in a really good way, being well-resourced, being grounded and centered, making good choices, feeling alive and being able to bring that to our communities, but also have an interest that we run our businesses ethically, that we are able to build structures in society that are more equitable for all. So this is really the kind of field that I like to create. And I really invite anyone who resonates with that to share this work, to be a part of this work in some way, to connect with me personally if you would like. and to see if there are ways that I can help or the tools of Guts and Grace can help. In many ways, I think they were brought in to help us connect more deeply with the feminine, which, what is that? It's an energy, it's a way of being and doing, it's a kind of embodiment, it's a particular, again, I'll use the word energetic on the planet that hasn't really been as present in the business context, in the political context, in the government context. We've really built in so many ways our society on something a little different. And I think post COVID, since COVID, and certainly in many ways as well before, it's like we've been feeling the tensions of that not being, of us not having built in a more balanced way. Now, that's one thing to say, but then the question is, what do we do about it? And there are many things that need to be done about it. There's work that needs to be done at a systems level to change the way we structure things so that we humans can actually thrive inside of them. This is my perspective. But there's also living differently from the inside out and being, in so doing, being a beacon for, being a transmission of a different way that we could run our energy as an individual human and then thus as a collective. So what I want to offer in our session today is an opportunity to explore for your own self the way that your personal energetic, and in particular during this busy time of the holiday season, may be upgradable to be more connected with your deeper longings, to be more aligned with a balanced feminine and masculine way of being and doing that may be more supportive of your resilience and that may be more sustainable in the long run. And, it's like when I use some of these words, you can kind of think about what is that for me personally, but if also my family could feel that way, or my community or my organization could feel that way, what would be different? None of the work of Guts and Grace, nothing that I'm going to teach here, is wildly complex. Most of it is fairly simple. And I sometimes will say to my clients, the devil is in the doing of it, meaning we kind of know, but our embodiment takes us somewhere else. By default, we go somewhere else. And so it's really through practice, through intentional practice, through choosing, through tracking, through seeing ourselves in our default mode, and through through connection to what matters to us most, that we can recalibrate, reprogram, retool ourselves to behave in a different way that has a different kind of result. And I think the holiday time is a unique time to play with this kind of experiment or to work with these kind of energies, because it can often feel like there's so much going on and I'm a bit at the mercy of all of it. You may not feel that way, but that can be some of our experience. Like, it's happening to me. I've said yes to all of this. We're in these situations. Family is coming. Whatever's happening around this time for you in your life and your work, or just there's so much to get done and none of it can wait until January. But the potential, the opportunity of the work that I'll offer today, and that you may already be familiar with but not fully practicing, the opportunity is to allow yourself to surrender, to open and surrender to some sense of hope, sense of possibility, sense of, I'll use this word, malleability of reality, of your circumstance, of your experience, to line more up with what you'd like to be experiencing during this time. This idea of fixed and malleable has been around for centuries. And also I want to attribute in a way to Carol Dweck's work on mindset, that we have a way we can think about ourselves as fixed, or our identity as fixed, the way we do things, the way the world is as fixed. It's not changeable. It is this way. It has to be this way. And then we can also have a different way of looking at or thinking about ourselves, the world, that it's malleable, that it's changeable, that yes, it seems that way, but maybe if I pushed a little here, or asked a question, or did something a little bit differently, or even thought about it a little bit differently, that something could change. And a lot of the work I offer through Guts and Grace is an invitation to get into the experiment of how malleable is your world, are your behaviors, is your identity or personality actually, so that there's potential leverage to experience something different than the result you got, the thing you did, what you saw before. Because as long as we believe that it's fixed, then we keep having the same experience. And as we start to question that, as we start to experiment again, maybe use the word 6 times already, but as long as we start to experiment with something could be different, then we have a different opening for something new. Why does this matter? It matters in part. I heard someone say recently, and unfortunately I don't remember where it was attributed, but that in some way we don't have a lot of free will. Why? Certainly as humans we do. It's one thing that's unique about us, but because so much of our choosing, our deciding, our acting is unconsciously driven by the programming that we have built up over time through our experiences. We could say our embodiment, who we've become, what we've taken on in our physical shape, in our way of thinking, in the stories we tell ourselves, in the actions we take or don't take, in the ways we move through the world. We've created unconsciously, and in some cases consciously, this persona, this way of being. And therefore, most of the time, we're acting out of it out of default. It's not really free will. It's already been determined. We've already decided this is how I do things. This is what I experience, for example. So malleability, the idea of malleability as a mindset or as an experiment, opens the door that maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe something could change. When I talk about this inside of the Guts and Grace women's empowerment and leadership work, I talk about dismantling the patriarchy within. What does that mean? Essentially, it means through our belief that something about our experience and our persona and our behavior, our shaping, our way of being, could be more malleable than we think, that we start to create the possibility of letting go of structures inside of us and in terms of how we be that are not serving us anymore and that may have been learned from a system that wasn't built entirely to serve people like us, we might say, a structure that was built to serve a certain few and not others. I've learned lessons from that. I'm performing to that unconsciously, or I'm resisting against that unconsciously or consciously. And then nonetheless, I'm acting more out of default. So anyway, this is the kind of the background, the theory, the opportunity of the work of Guts and Grace in general. If you have any curiosity, by the way, let me post something here about the work of Guts and Grace, the approach that we take to coaching, to transformation, you're welcome to check out now or as this goes on or later. Our coaching page, our coaching approach page on the website. I do run a year-long program called Guts and Grace. I'll mention it again at the end. It starts in January, and this work that I'm going to draw from today sits inside of a much larger body of work that is around this kind of deprogramming, releasing, becoming more malleable, and then finding ways to live into new embodiment, to live into that really works for the highest resilience that we can have as women in leadership. And of course, that's not a blanket thing. It's like for you individually. And then also the highest impact, the highest potential for leadership as a woman in the workplace. So all of that said, let's take a few moments and set some intentions together. First, just take a breath and ask yourself this question: why did I choose to watch this live or to come here today? So if you're here live, you're welcome to write something in the chat. Please feel free. Why did you come here today? Why did you opt in? And if you're not here live, just take a note for yourself. I decided to dedicate some time to being in this process, to exploring having it all during the holiday season. Why? What brought me? And then let's do this together. I invite you to take a deep breath and a big exhale. And start to come into the awareness of the sensations in your body. Notice what you can feel. That might be something more like a temperature or a pressure. It could be a tightness or a looseness, a tingly sensation. Just notice what you can feel. It might be a pain. And let whatever you can feel be an anchor to come even more deeply into your own body in this moment. I am human. I can feel things. They don't always feel good, but anyway, what a gift to have a body, to not be numb, to be aware. There's a lot of power in that. Allow yourself to be and be aware. Taking a few more deeper breaths. And as you do this, as you breathe and you be here with yourself, coming into alignment through the length of your spine. Sometimes we collapse or we overreach for our length, for our dignity, for having a right to be here, or we give it up. Find yourself in with a fairly straight or extended spine, in a sense of uprightness, of dignity, of I'm here, I am. And notice how that feels. And then on your next breath, coming into extension or openness through the front and back of your body, side to side. I take up space. No, I actually do take up space. Some of us get a little smaller, more narrow, pull in, and some of us take up more space than we need to, trying to hold everyone or everything, especially during the holidays, coming into ourselves as sovereign but open, available without grasping. Feel the right size of you, the actual space you take up for you without needing to also take or hold other people. You could even imagine a boundary around your outside edges, for example. And then on your next breath, we're going to work with the depth of front to back of us as a body, as a being. Taking a breath and breathe into your back. You may not know how to do it, but just imagine. When I breathe, I inflate, I inhabit the back of my body. We spend a lot of time looking at screens or looking at other people. Feel your own back. Have your own back. I have my own back. How do I do that? Oh, I pay attention to it. I sit back maybe a little. I feel that there's something back there. In metaphor, we might even say this would include like your past or what's behind you, your back. Good, calling it in. Then feel your insides for a moment. Pick one organ, even if you don't think you can actually feel it. Maybe I tune into, can I feel the beating of my heart? Or there's food digesting in my tummy. Let me be present with it for a moment. The depth of what's inside of me. And then allow yourself to be present with your front. Here's what's ahead of me. If you're with me on this video, you might be looking at me or the screen. You could close your eyes, you could open them. But be present to the physical sensation on the front of your own body and let it be a little bit soft. If you want to receive something, take something in, you may need to soften your force field around the front to let it come in. How do you do that? I don't know. Your body may be different than mine, but take an intention. Maybe it's like I relax my jaw and my face a little, or I imagine my chest getting a little less like a metal shield and a little more like a soft blanket or something. See what works for you. And then take one more deep breath. Bring your awareness down into your belly. And ask your belly, ask your gut, what matters to you right now? What's important? What do you care about? And if it makes sense, let your body offer an answer. You may not be able to tell if it's your body or your mind, but feel what matters right now. And just let yourself be with that in your mind, heart, and also in your body, if that's what matters. How can I adjust slightly my presence to show up for that? As we continue, I want to offer a few of my intentions for today. I want to affirm and intend that we are, whoever are here, now or later, in exactly at the right time to do exactly the right thing, to do the learning that will support us on our paths today, that we have access to our inner knowing, that she is wise enough to get us through the times that are intense, hard, or feel like too much, and that any sense of scarcity of resources, including our own time, energy, and skill that we may have, may be more malleable and less fixed than we think, and that we are open to finding out more. Okay. Take one more deep breath. If your eyes were closed, I invite you to open them and slowly, if you're willing, grab a pen and paper, pencil and paper, a journal if you have one. It's okay if you decide to do this on your computer, in a document of some kind. If you have a way to write by hand, sometimes that can produce a different result, especially if you work on the computer a lot. And when I say a different result, I mean maybe different answers, but more so a different sensate experience of doing what I'm about to ask you to do. So if you'd like to use a different part of your brain or not go back into, great, click into computer mode. I invite you to write by hand. And I'm going to invite you to make three lists. I won't say short lists. Let's say the sentences in these lists can be short, but the lists will be about 10 things each. So take one page and don't think about it too hard. I want you to, with regard to your family, your work, this year we've almost completed, answer this question first. I'd like you to write 10 things you are proud of and or are doing well. And yes, I mean write it now. Sometimes, especially for high achievers, we balk at this question or like, yeah, I'll do it later. Please do it now. 10 things you are proud of yourself for with regards to your family, your work this year. 10 things you're proud of yourself for or have been doing or are doing well. The point is actually more the experience of writing it now than the content. Hint. So I'll give you a couple of minutes. A word, a couple of words is fine. If you're watching later and you feel inclined to skip on to the next question, even though you didn't write 10 things, I dare you to pause and write a few things. I'll tell you in a few minutes why we're doing this and why it's important. But I want you to have the experience first. Okay, if you're not done with your 10, that's okay. Leave a few spaces, and I'm going to give you number 2. So I'd like you to write 10 things that you forgive yourself for, or at least are willing to start forgiving yourself for. 10 things can be a word, a couple of words. You'll know what they mean. You don't have to write a story. 10 things that you, maybe over the course of this year, or in your family, or with your work, or your leadership. Doesn't have to be just this year. 10 things that you forgive yourself for, or are willing to start forgiving yourself for. Go ahead. We'll take just a couple of minutes here. You may need to stretch on this one. There are no right or wrong answers. Be kind to yourself. Take another 30 seconds to write as many as you can. Okay, and same thing. If you don't have 10 yet, leave a few spaces. And one more list. I want to invite you to write, again, in relation to your family, your work this year, or beyond, 10 things that you have or have access to that you are sincerely grateful for. And this can be a little cliche sometimes, so I invite you to really be in it, not in a cliche way. Like, really feel, oh, I don't always acknowledge that, but yes, that. So 10 things that you have or have access to that you're sincerely grateful for. Take a few minutes and again, write 10. Can be just a word, a couple words. And if you're feeling any tension or like, when do we get on to the next thing? Just breathe, feel your body again, and keep writing. This is not only a thought exercise, but it is a somatic practice, which I will share more about in a moment. 10 things you're sincerely grateful for that you have or have access to. You have about another 30 seconds. Okay, pause. If you're not done, leave a little bit of space. And take a moment. If you want, you can close your eyes or just bring your awareness again into the sensations of your body and notice how you are now. Maybe better or worse, but notice what's different, if anything. How are you? What sensations, what mood are you aware of? How tight, loose, contracted, expanded, present, unpresent do you feel? And just write a couple of notes on that. Here's what I notice. Here's what's different. Here's how I feel. If you're here live and you want to put something in the chat, you can. And then also capture in your notes what happened. Was it easy? Did something open up in terms of other thoughts for you? Did you get distracted? Did you struggle to stay present? And was my pace maddening for you? Just what happened? What unfolded here? And perhaps as you're writing that, you may notice that it reminds you of some things back in life or not. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, the work of Guts and Grace, the work of transformation, the work of connecting more deeply with the feminine energies, the work of healing trauma, the work of personal and professional evolution is much more about what happens in the doing of it. I could certainly talk quickly and give you an hour worth of content on this live. I have done it before. I'm sure I will do it again. Believe me, it's not what I wanted for this session because I wanted to give you the nourishment of the experience of slowing down, of in this case, actually honoring yourself, giving yourself credit. In this practice, also the nourishment of letting go of hooks that you're holding yourself in that might drain you. And also in this practice, acknowledging things that are already there or partly there. Because to feel like one is having it all, these are part of the experience. And while it's one thing to know that, it's another thing to actually do it. So taking the time to write this list to actually, with our minds and hearts and in full presence, acknowledge it is part of what can shift the experience of not feeling like we're having it all or feeling at odds with ourselves. Believe me, going that slow, hoping that you're making a list while I'm looking at a computer screen saying nothing is not an easy thing to do. It's taking a certain level of somatic practice on my side to hold my tongue, to breathe deeply, to not wonder what you're thinking of me, to not rush so that you don't decide to click off of this live and go do something else with your time. And you may have done that, and that's okay. What I know for folks that do this work with me or other kinds of work like it is that when we stick around long enough to go through that process, something alchemically changes. Something changes in our psyche, in our cells of our bodies. And when we practice things like this more ongoingly, we become different in the ways that we desire. And when we don't, we have information, but we don't have embodiment. We know what it could be like to honor ourselves and actually recognize that we've done some good things, but we're not actually doing it. And so the gap between me and feeling satisfied, the gap between me and not feeling exhausted or like there's more to do because I'm not enough remains. And that is exactly what our egos would like it to do, because it gives them something to do to keep us chasing for it, to keep us feeling like we're not enough, to keep us feeling depleted. So I wanted to start here and give you a taste of how the practices that seem oh so incredibly simple can work as a foundation. So let's start to talk about the theme for today, having it all during this time of the holidays. I picked it very on purpose. And, also very on purpose, I'm waiting 35 minutes into this live to say much about it because I really want you I don't want to make it overly simple. I'm not going to, in this live, be one of those people or coaches who tries to sell you something that's a quick fix or tries to insist that it's possible to be in two places at once or that we don't have to choose sometimes or that women can always have all the energy they need to run a business, raise a kid, make dinner, do the laundry, launch a new initiative, care for aging parents all at the same time, though many of my clients are also holding all of these things, and some of them I am as well. The cracks in that promise have been showing since COVID, since before. And so then we could go, well, see, none of that's possible. But I don't think that's the right answer either. What I've found in doing the embodied, mindful, and spiritual work of Guts and Grace that I've been teaching for over 15 years is that there are versions of how we can have these things, but it takes another layer of depth, another layer of realness, another layer of willingness to practice and to feel and to be present. And so this is the kind of offer I'd like to make. And frankly, we're already in it. If you are still here and it's 36 minutes in, we're already in practice together right now. You're already listening to the pace of my voice. We've already made a list. We've already felt our bodies. Likely, you'll feel different when you leave this session. It may only last a short while if you don't come back to it, but there's something that's like accessible, havable here if we opt in, and we're creating a culture of that together right now and being in practice. What I want to do is give you a little bit of content, something to kind of hang it on from a mind perspective to answer this question, and also potentially a couple of practices you can take home with you. So the way that I've organized this is to highlight through this part of the session where you can kind of receive and take in some information now that we've been in practice, to highlight some things you may be doing, 3 things in particular, that prevent you from feeling like or having the experience that you have it all or can have it all, and to offer some respite here and also some new practices or some old practices that may be helpful to bring back online. So number 1, and if you want, you can take notes or just take this in, just see how this lands. One of the top things that prevents us from feeling like or having the experience of having it all, and therefore from having it all, is not counting what you're good at or what you have. This is why we made the list. So I'll give you an example. I have a client who's running a successful business, and we had a conversation about growing the business, and she expressed some fear about, well, will that business grow or could it possibly grow? Because the way it was structured, she wasn't sure if it would be able to hit the financial targets. And yet when we actually looked at what was happening monthly, when we looked at what the way that things were structured at her price points, at all of the different things about this business, what we got to see was that she had all the right things in place. There was no problem with the price point. There was no problem with the choices she'd made about how to structure it. There was really no problem with the business model. There was some more needed to really stoke it to the next level. But ultimately, what we concluded was she's actually a pretty good businesswoman. And we were coming from the beginning of a conversation that started with a little bit of like the imposter syndrome. I don't really know if I can do this. Other people seem to be doing it better. Like a lot of self-doubt, actually. And it took getting real and concrete to be able to dispel that and go, no, you can count that you've done a good job here. You can count that actually things are in place. Sure, there's more to do. There may be some cleanup. But if you're not counting what is already so, then you're essentially, it's like you're on a treadmill that's going backwards and you're trying to walk forward. Constantly, constantly, constantly. It is one of the number one things that I see with my female executive coaching clients is that that I feel depleted, that I can't get there, and that I actually have so much that I'm already doing well or is already working, but it's not part of my mindset. It's like, oh yeah, that thing over there. Okay, sure. To be able to get there, you have to count what you have and where you are. It sounds ridiculously obvious. As a practice, it is not. And so I invite you to, as we go into the holiday season as you're exploring or working with what would it be? How could I have more experience of feeling like I have it all during this time? To work with the practice of counting it. What does that mean? So, here, I'll make a very concrete suggestion. I'd love for you to, somewhere on your desk, somewhere that you go often, on your mirror, on your desk, write something on a sticky note like, what am I not counting that matters today? And really, like, in myself, what am I not counting about myself, about what I do, about my successes, about my wins that actually matters today, that counts? And to be in an ongoing practice of checking in with yourself. So, this is number one. You could come back to, for example, if you wanted to make it really concrete, writing that same kind of a list every day over the next number of days. It took us, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes to write a few things in each category, maybe 10 minutes if you're trying to write 10. So, a small investment to stop feeling like there's nothing that counts here. There's nothing I can grasp. There's nothing that's adding up. Yeah. I've definitely, we do this with clients sometimes. It produces some really amazing results in terms of how we're feeling, and how we're feeling makes a huge difference in terms of how much energy we have or how resourced we feel. So, this is number one. Also, however, I can say a somatic practice, like an in the moment embodied practice, can be to observe for, to self track, to self observe for the ways in which when something could land, you don't let it. So, for example, are there ways where you get a compliment and you say, no, that wasn't me? No, like that you deflect. Energetically, you're not taking in the nourishment from that, and therefore it's not fully counting in your nervous system, and therefore you're still feeling empty. We have different ways of doing that. It could be that you don't say anything, but somatically you shut down, block, and pull back. Yeah. It could be that you say, oh, it wasn't me, right? So we do it verbally, we do it in an embodied way. So this could be another practice in this bucket of number one, not counting what you're good at or what you have. So one more thing. Another way that we do that sometimes is to almost like a do or redo or need to do it again. That's like, we could say the perfectionism treadmill, right? It's like, okay, that was actually enough, and then let's go use it. That was enough, and let's go offer it to someone. That was enough, and let me gift it. For example, as a hobby and also as a creator, I work with vocal improvisation, and in the making of sound and offering of a new tune, for example, I could stop and start and stop and start and try it again, and oh, that wasn't quite it, and it wasn't perfect. Or I could just begin to bring it out and then let it evolve into something. And what I find is that the second is way more fun. It brings way more energy, and it begins to count because I'm counting it from the beginning. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. If you see yourself inside of this, pause for a moment and just write down, here's one thing that resonates for me about that I don't tend to do, that I might want to add. If you have a lot on your plate, writing things at the end of every day could feel burdensome because it's one more thing to do. My promise is that if you decide to take it on, it will help you feel less, like more fulfilled and less depleted. But also being in a tracking process, like an in the moment, wow, how do I block it? Doesn't really add any extra time. It's just paying attention and then maybe interrupting the way that you block it. So take a note for yourself. Is there something you'd like to commit to practice here? And then once you've taken a note, I'm going to share with you number two. Number two. Remember, these are the three things that you might be doing that may prevent you from having it all or feeling like you're having it all. Number two is holding a trade-off that might not exist. Holding a trade-off, or believing in holding a trade-off that might not exist. So I'll give you an example. I'm working with a client who has a lot going on in her personal life. She's holding some family members and their mental well-being and physical well-being challenges. And also, she has been invited into a new opportunity to really expand in her leadership and her kind of spiritual giving. And with those two things and how hard it is to hold what's happening in her family, there's a sense of, how could I possibly expand into this thing? How could I possibly have the energy to? How could I possibly um, allow myself to open to another level of purpose or giving or something else because I'm already so depleted? And as we started to work with this, what we started to see was that when she's in this type of service, it actually generates a lot of energy for her and around her. And we started to play with the possibility that maybe one wouldn't take from the other like she was worried about and imagined, but actually one could feed the other. And maybe the energy of the purpose and the giving and what that would bring to her would be the only thing that would be enough to counterbalance what was heavy and hard on this side. My own example of that is something like this. There have been moments in my life where I've struggled with my own challenges of mental health, with maybe depression or like deep emotional challenge and strife. And during all of those times, I never had the financial setup that I could not work. And much of that time, my work was coaching other people, holding other people through what was hard for them, through new possibilities. And in some ways, I would say that I still had to coach, that I was showing up, that I was in my deepest level or kind of service during that time, probably saved my life. There was some way that getting to do that, being with others and also being of service and being ignited in my gift generated enough energy to keep me afloat while I was working with this other thing. Now, this is only one, these two examples are a little similar. It's only one version of how a trade-off might, how holding two things as an either or might not help you generate energy and feel like you have it all. And they're kind of similar, but there may be many different other kinds. So yours may be nothing like these, but I'd like you to consider, is there something in your life? Is there an either or? I can either have this or I can have that. Or if I do this, then there's no way I'll have energy for that. Or I'm so sure that these two things can't fit together, but all that I've ever wanted is both of them. If there's anything like that for you, there's maybe more than one for many of us, but take a moment and write down what they are. Maybe you have a couple, either this or this, either that or that. I have to trade off this for that. And when you write them next to each other, right? This or this on the page, and you can kind of draw a line between them. So it's like, I've got the pendulum will swing this way, or it could swing that way, but they're like this, and I can't reconcile them. Okay. Briefly, I want to invite you to do the beginning of an embodied practice. We won't have time for the whole practice, but I want to just give you a small taste here and then offer a suggestion to work with this. So if you would like, you can bring both hands kind of one to each side. They don't need to be high like this, but I'm sitting a little low, so next to you is good. On the right hand and on the left hand. And you can kind of look on one hand and on the other hand. On one hand, on the other hand. And just let yourself feel. It's like one hand is one of those sides, one hand is the other side. Bring your attention to one. Either I can serve, be in my power, be ignited, contribute my gifts, or I can be with my family, take care of this person, make sure they're okay. And then just let yourself feel the either or of it. I can go here, I can go here. How they feel different. Yeah. Just notice. What's that like? Almost, for me, it almost feels like I'm being torn in half. I can't have it all because these halves don't go together. And then there are many ways to do this, but for this moment, I want to invite you to see if you can let your presence, so it's like I'm in the middle and then here's my right and here's my left, let your presence get bigger, so taller, wider around those two hands. Wow, okay, I can maybe take a deeper breath like we did at the beginning, getting tall, getting wide. See if you can find a version of you, your presence in this moment that is big enough for both, that has enough space perhaps for both. And notice what qualities are present in this version of you if you can access it. If that inspires you to move your hands in any way, to shift anything about how you've been holding it in the physical without thinking yet about what that means practically, go ahead. Like maybe you want to bring your hands together or bring them over your head or just keep them where they are, but feel them differently. I feel called to do this at this moment. Down here. Take a deep breath, a big exhale, and let that go. So we could spend half an hour or more probably with this practice. If we were coaching together, we might take this many places from here, and it may be that things opened up a little somatically. Just take note. If you'd like to take a note on your notebook where underneath where you've written the line about anything that came up or something you felt or an idea it gave you or a way the story changed, you can take a note. So there's a potentiality with attention like this to find a third way, to perhaps get bigger than the challenge, to be curious about some way that the two could actually serve or support versus be in tension with each other, to find a solution, an experiment, a way of being, a new resource that somehow makes them not at odds anymore. And this is what I'd like to invite you to explore. For one of the core trade-offs, maybe you wrote 10, maybe you only wrote one, but for one of them, to be in a reflection over the next couple of days or weeks as you go into the holiday, is there a way that they actually could complement rather than contradict or be havable, seeable, feelable in the same sentence? With my client, what we discovered was, it's not done, right? She's in process, but there could be a possibility that the energy that would come through being of service in this way would actually support her to be more resourced versus less resourced to take care of or be present with the family in the way that she needed to. We don't know yet. We'll see. But it's the opening of the possibility. It's the malleability that things don't have to be exactly this way, and the cracking in the certainty that starts to create new potential for a new experience. And that's what we're actually getting at here in this little taste of an experience. In Guts and Grace, we work deeply with trade-offs and dissolving them, looking for ways that are becoming takes us beyond where we feel stuck inside of those trade-offs. It's very different than trying to have both at the same time or either or. So this is the potential of how this work can support. One thing you can work with is there a declaration, an intention statement, a decision, something you could write and then be committed to or play with in your mind and also in your practice that captures what it would be like to get bigger than, or to integrate them, or to go beyond the trade-off in some way. There's really no cookie cutter way to do this, or I would tell you. It's very personal for each example. And that is the beauty, say, of working with a somatic coach or someone who does, like we do in Guts and Grace, this type of work, that it's much more about finding your way to reconcile or your way to untangle or dissolve this trade-off than here's the right way to do it. So thank you for sticking with me, and thanks for entertaining the possibility. Number 3, the last way you might be preventing yourself from feeling like you have it all or from being able to have it all is perhaps the most obvious, and it's actually what I'm going to dedicate our next sanctuary session to in more depth. So in brief, it's related to boundaries and desire. For example, are there ways that you don't set boundaries, or don't speak your desires, or don't know where you need boundaries, or don't know what your desires are? This is taught in a lot of places, and I think we do it in some ways similar and a little different inside of the Guts and Grace work. I'll give you a small example. So I have a client who is working with leveling up to, let's say, more executive level leadership from more mid-tier or mid-senior level leadership. And what she sees is that there's a way that her attention can be really pulled from everyone and everything. And it's part of her superpower. She really has a deep capacity and desire to serve. And then there can be a shadow or a dark side where that ends up being it's like it's available everywhere all the time to anyone, and not enough censoring or not enough choosing inside of that. And so that has depleted her in the past. And as she steps into an even more senior level role, either as a founder or as a C-level executive, she knows that she doesn't want to replicate that anymore. That there's no center, and she's not really the master of her queendom, if you will. So what she also sees is that was a certain kind of strategy inside of the legacy of her family dynamic, and that it isn't in a way just her story or her thing to solve for, that it has threads all the way back to family lineage, family history, family-related trauma. And so this is a very beautiful and deep practice to start to work with, is to find or create key experiments, practices that start to unlock or unhook you from the default of a place where you may not have the exact boundaries or connection with desire or choosing, that will shore up the sense of depletion. I used to talk about stopping the energy leaks that would lead to burnout, almost like plugging holes in a leaky system. And for some people, learning how to say no, period, is like a really good place to start. And for some, that's actually not going to get that much leverage, either because you already say no, but maybe not the right no's, or because it's something else that's where the bigger energy leak is. So in preparation, if you'd like to come back and be in a deeper reflection on this number 3 topic with me around boundaries and desire in a couple of weeks, I think it's December 20th, Wednesday, we're back on. I invite you to simply, for now, track, self-observe when, where, and how I'm going to say don't let people win with you, meaning either you say yes when you mean no, or you don't actually say what you want or need, or you go into something that isn't really healthy for either of you. All of those different places where you might allow, unconsciously or consciously, your energy to leak out, and just start paying more attention. Get curious about exactly how do you do that as compared to other people. How does it happen for you? Maybe it's as simple as I didn't say no, but maybe there's something that happens before that or after that. There's a way that it comes together. You did say no, but then blah, blah, blah. So I invite you to just start paying attention and getting really curious. And on this same notebook or document where you've been taking notes, to take a few notes for yourself about that. This is our number 3 practice. As a quick recap, not counting what you're good at or have, and this practice of counting it in the moment or on a sticky note, making a list, what matters, what am I not counting that matters in what I'm doing or what I'm being every day. Number 2, working with this idea of a trade-off that may not really exist in the malleability, and a third thing beyond the trade-off. And then number 3, tracking, learning about how boundaries, desire, where I may need to shore up something there, or could create a new practice that would unlock something for me that may be related to my family history, the legacy of how we've done things around here in our, family story. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Take a breath, exhale. There's always more than, no matter how long I give myself, there's always more that I'd like to share and get you in an experience with than there's time for online. I'll say just a couple things. If this speaks to you and you're like, wow, I got something here, or I got a taste of something and I don't know if I can implement this on my own, I would love to support you. As I mentioned, I do run a year-long coaching and mastermind training program called Guts and Grace. It is designed to teach you how to do these practices in your sleep, rather than have them be good ideas that don't get put into practice. There are so many books on resilience. There are so many books on great leadership. But do we embody them? And what are the nuances that we need to understand in ourselves and how our nervous system, psyches, bodies, minds work to be able to actually have it become a real embodied practice and habit versus a good idea, so that we don't just keep replicating the same old thing and we really are able to fully step into a next level, not just because I got the job, but because I'm actually being a different way, and that I'm a match for this next level or the kind of impact that I want to make fully. And I can do that without creating a lot of leaks and holes in my own energy and burning myself out. So if this speaks to you, I invite you to, if you would like, let me pop a little thing up here. I invite you to book a coaching discovery call. Over the next month, I will be offering 30-minute time slots to go deep together. If you decide you want to join us in Get Some Grace or get some coaching or be part of one of our other programs, you're welcome to. If not, you get a half an hour of free coaching, and I probably won't keep doing that forever. But at this moment, I'm still available for it, and I still invite you to come join me and to come get some support. The link is here, www.getsomegrace.com/apply. At this moment, that's how you can find me and apply for a call. Once you fill out your application, we'll contact you to book some time. And on that note, I want to invite us one more time together to take a couple deep breaths and come back into our bodies. So, wherever you are, let's pause. Breathe in, breathe out. Bring your awareness to the sensations that you have in your body right now. We've been on a bit of a ride. We started with a lot of nourishment and depth. We added some potentially challenging practices, hopefully also helpful. Maybe you feel a sense of hope. Maybe you're like, but have something you could do. Maybe you're just feeling calmer because you don't have your attention on stuff that was driving you nuts before this call, but feel. And as you tune in and feel, I invite you to ask your body this question: which practice is for me next? Which practice is for me? What does my body know about what that we've done here might have some legs for you, might actually be supportive? Paying attention to how you sense that clarity. Or maybe it's not clear. Just feel. And I invite you to keep this as an open question if you didn't get a super clear answer yet. You can sleep on it. You can take it into the shower with you, take it on a walk with you. Which of these practices or something else will serve me around having it all or feeling more like I can have it all this holiday season? And then before we close, I invite you to place your hand somewhere on your own body. I'll choose my heart, but you don't have to do that at all. And offer through your thoughts and also through your hand some gratitude. Thank you, body, for everything you do to carry me through, for your coping strategies and for your resilience and for your willingness to soften and be present and show up for this call. Let yourself receive it. See if you can let it in. Again, softening through wherever your hand is to receive the gratitude. Okay. And if you are watching live and you'd like to share a takeaway in the chat, here's what I'm leaving with, here's what I'm grateful for from this time, please feel free. If you're watching later, just write down, here's what I'm leaving with, here's what I'm taking away, here's what I'm grateful for from this session. May it be a step on the path toward greater resilience during this time, toward greater self-love during this time. May it be a step on the path toward learning and embodying new ways of being that help you feel more grounded, less frazzled, more whole, and more like it could be possible to have it all or have more of what really matters to you over the next month. I wish you a nourishing and beautiful, and if you so desire, productive rest of your day. And I invite you to join me again in a couple of weeks for our second sanctuary session, which will be about boundaries, desire, and family legacy. Have a great rest of your day.